Hi guys. Today we start Aurobindo's article, Sri Aurobindo Ghosh's article called Karmayogin, a weekly review. This is divided into several large chapters which are standalone chapters. It's not like a continuation of an article. In this video we will get into his article called Ourselves, which comes in the series called Karmayogin, which was published on 19th June in 1909 in the weekly review of National Religion, Literature, Science, Philosophy, and C. I don't know what it stands for. Here, Aurobindo writes, "The Karma Yogin comes into the field to fulfill a function which an increasing tendency in the country demands. The life of the nation, which once flowed in a broad and single stream, has long severed into a number of separate, meagre, and shallow channels. The two main floods have followed the paths of religion and politics, but they have flowed separately. Our political activity has crept in a channel cut for it by European or Europeanized minds, or in J. Deepak's words, colonialized minds. It tended always to a superficial wideness, but was deficient in depth and volume. The national genius, originality, individuality poured itself into religion, while our politics were imitative and unreal." What beautiful words. "Yet without a living political activity, national life cannot, under modern circumstances, survive. So also there has been a stream of social life, more and more muddied and disturbed, seeking to get clearness, depth, largeness, freedom, but always failing and increasing in weakness or distraction. There was a stream too of industrial life, faint and thin, the poor survival of the old vigorous Indian artistic and industrial capacity murdered by unjust laws and an unscrupulous trade policy. All these ran in disconnected channels, sluggish, scattered, and ineffectual. The tendency is now for these streams to unite again into one mighty invisible and grandiose flood. To assist that tendency to give voice and definiteness to the deeper aspirations now forming obscurely within the national consciousness is the chosen work of the Karma Yogin. There is no national life perfect or sound without the Chaturvarna. The life of the nation must contain within itself the life of the Brahmin, which is spirituality, knowledge, learning, high and pure ethical aspiration and endeavor, the life of the Kshatriya, which is manhood and strength, moral and physical, the love of battle, the thirst for glory, the sense of honor, chivalry, self-devotion, generosity, grandeur of soul, the life of the Vaishya, which is trade, industry, thrift, prosperity, benevolence, philanthropy, and the life of the Shudra, honesty, simplicity, labor, religious and quiet service to the nation even in the humblest position and the most insignificant kind of work. The cause of India's decline was the practical disappearance of the Kshatriya and the dwindling of the Vaishya. The whole political history of India since the tyranny of the Nandas has been an attempt to resuscitate or replace the Kshatriya. But the attempt was only partially successful. The Vaishya held his own for a long time, indeed until the British advent, by which he has almost been extinguished. When the Chaturvarnya disappears, there comes Varna Sankara, utter confusion of the great types which keep a nation vigorous and sound. The Kshatriya dwindled, the Vaishya dwindled, the Brahmin and Shudra were left. The inevitable tendency was for the Brahmin type to disappear, and the first sign of his disappearance was utter degeneracy, the tendency to lose himself, and while keeping some outward signs of the Brahmin to gravitate towards Shudrahood. In the Kali Yuga, the Shudra is powerful and attracts into himself the less vigorous Brahmin, as the earth attracts purer but smaller bodies, and the Brahmatej, the spiritual force of the latter, already diminished, dwindles to nothingness. For the Satya Yuga to return, we must get back the Brahmatej and make it general. For the Brahmatej is the basis of all the rest, and in the Satya Yuga all men have it more or less, and by it the nation lives and is great. All this, let us say, a parable. It is more than a parable. It is a great truth. But our educated class have become so unfamiliar with the deeper knowledge of their forefathers that it has to come to be translated into modern European terms before they can understand it. For it is the European ideas alone that are real to them, and the great truths of Indian thought seem to them mere metaphors, allegories, and mystic parables. So well has British education done its fatal denationalizing work in India. The Brahmin stands for religion, science, scholarship, and the higher morality, the Kshatriya for war, politics, and administration, the Vaishya for the trades, professions, and industries, the Shudra for labor and service. It is only when these four great departments of human activity are all in a robust and flourishing condition that the nation is sound and great. When any of these disappear or suffer, it is bad for the body politic. And the two highest are the least easy to be spared. If they survive in full strength, they can provide themselves with the two others. But if either the Kshatriya or the Brahmin go, if either the political force or the spiritual force of a nation is lost, that nation is doomed unless it can revive or replace the missing strength. And of the two, the Brahmin is the most important. He can always create the Kshatriya. Spiritual force can always raise up material force to defend it. But if the Brahmin becomes the Shudra, then the lower instinct of the serf and the laborer becomes all in all, the instinct to serve and seek a living as the one supreme object of life, the instinct to accept safety as a compensation for lost greatness and inglorious ease, and dependence in place of the arduous ardors of high aspiration for the nation and the individual. When spirituality is lost, all is lost. This is the fate from which we have narrowly escaped by the resurgence of the soul of India in nationalism. But that resurgence is not yet complete. There is the sentiment of Indianism. There is not yet the knowledge. There is the sentiment but not the knowledge. There is a vague idea. There is no definite conception or deep insight. We have yet to know ourselves, what we were, are, and may be, what we did in the past, and what we are capable of doing in the future, our history and our mission. This is the first and most important work which the Karmayogin sets for itself, to popularize this knowledge. The Vedanta or Sufism, the temple or the mosque, Nanak and Kabir and Ramdas, Chaitanya or Guru Govind, Brahmin and Kayastha and Namasudra, whatever national asset we have, indigenous or acclimatized, it will seek to make known, to put in its right place and appreciate. And the second thing is how to use these assets so as to swell the sum of national life and produce the future. It is easy to appraise their relations to the past. It is more difficult to give them their place in the future. The third thing is to know the outside world and its relation to us and how to deal with it. That is the problem which we find at present the most difficult and insistent, but its solution depends on the solution of the others. We have said that Brahmatej is the thing we need most of all and first of all. In one sense, that means the preeminence of religion. But after all, what the Europeans mean by religion is not Brahmatej, which is rather spirituality, the force and energy of thought and action arising from communion with or self-surrender to that within us which rules the world. In that sense, we shall use it. This force and energy can be directed to any purpose God desires for us. It is sufficient to knowledge, love, or service. It is good for the liberation of an individual soul, the building of a nation, or the turning of a tool. It works from within. It works in the power of God. It works with superhuman energy. The reawakening of that force in 300 millions of men by the means which our past has placed in our hands, that is our object. The European is proud of his success in divorcing religion from life. Religion, he says, is all very well in its place, but it has nothing to do with politics or science or commerce, which it spoils by its intrusion. It is meant only for Sundays, when if one is English, one puts on black clothes and tries to feel good, and if one is continental, one puts the rest of the week away and amuses oneself. In reality, the European has not succeeded in getting rid of religion from his life. It is coming back in socialism, in the anarchism of Bakunin and Tolstoy, in many other isms. And in whatever form it comes, it insists on engrossing the whole of life, molding the whole of society and politics under the law of idealistic aspiration. Which is why every idea that Europeans come up with is in fact steeped into Abrahamic epistemology. It does not use the word God or grasp the idea, but it sees God in humanity. What the European understood by religion had to be got rid of and put out of life, but real religion, spirituality, idealism, altruism, self-devotion, the hunger after perfection is the whole destiny of humanity and cannot be got rid of. After all, God does exist, and if He exists, you cannot shove Him into a corner and say that that is your place, and as for the world and life, it belongs to us. What they say is the difference between the spiritual world and the temporal world. He pervades and returns. Every age of denial is only a preparation for a larger and more comprehensive affirmation. This is why Aurobindo is my favorite. The Karmayogin will be more of a national review than a weekly newspaper. We shall notice current events only as they evidence, help, affect or resist the growth of national life and the development of the soul of the nation. Political and social problems we shall deal with from this standpoint, seeking first their spiritual roots and inner causes, and then proceeding to measures and remedies. In a similar spirit, we shall deal with all sources of national strength in the past and in the present, seeking to bring them home to all comprehensions and make them applicable to our life, dynamic and not static, creative and not merely preservative. For if there is no creation, there must be disintegration. If there is no advance and victory, there must be recoil and defeat. This is where this speech ends. And see how much by default, even though he did not know of the word decoloniality, he is by default a decolonialized human.